Hello everyone, my name is Jukka and big thank you to MegaJ for inviting me for this. Let's take a look at Keldor. It all starts with Skeletor. Anyone saying it starts with Keldor are looking things from not a historical viewpoint. To preface things, Skeletor started out as a demon from another dimension or a planet. This story is being told in various minicomics, filmation, cartoon, books, etc. The dimension was mostly unnamed, but in the kids' stuff, tape and books, there was Eternia's darker sister planet, INFINITA, from which Skeletor hailed from. The first big retcon to Skeletor came years later when the evil Horde was created as a collaborative effort by Filmation with Mattel. That introduced Hordak, and as the trope goes, you need to showcase how this new villain might be a bigger threat, so he is made to be Skeletor's teacher. This is the first instance where we got stories hinting at a younger Skeletor, the student. In the Masters of the Universe magazine, here is Skeletor as his cheery, skull-faced self, as you do, only to visually indicate it's a flashback. His armor is basically missing, so he just has the hood, or the depiction that was in the Golden Books. That described Skeletor coming from Etheria, not INFINITA, and how there is this mineral called Etheramite, the mightiest mineral as Hordak describes it, which was only found in Etheria, and how Skeletor wanted the power of the Etheramite, but he was too young to master its secrets, and the Etheramite turned him into a living skeleton. So depictions about a younger Skeletor did exist. The UK comics also had their story about Skeletor spending thousands of years trying to break through the mystic wall before entering Eternia. But essentially all the stories from writers, artists, and editors operated with the baseline that Skeletor was a demon, or later a pupil of the evil Horde. At the very end of the original run for Masters of the Universe, in 1987-88, there were plans for a spin-off, The Powers of Grayskull, which would depict the ancient Eternia filled with dinosaurs and giants. The big focus was on the new Eternia playset, the Three Towers. In this pre-Eternian time, the protagonist would be Hero, ancestor of He-Man and She-Ra, and with his mentor Keldor, they'd fight against the Snakemen. The Snakemen served a new character called the Unnamed One. That'll be important later on. The 1987 minicomic, The Search for Keldor, depicts the events where Randor reveals he has a brother, Keldor, who thought to master magic, but when his experiments went wrong, he was lost in dimensions beyond time. But now with the help of the Three Towers, there is a short window of time to look through the veil between dimensions, so Randor wants to look into the past and find Keldor. Meanwhile, Skeletor is watching all this go down, and he states that the good guys must not discover what happened to Keldor or it could destroy him. As Skeletor goes to intervene, we don't see what Randor is looking at through the veil between the dimensions, only that he says out loud, "I think I see Keldor, or is it... ... They are interrupted by Skeletor and a fight scene occurs. The comic ends with the characters having learned very little, vowing to try again next year to discover what happened to Keldor. And that's basically it in the vintage materials. This one minicomic is a bit of an anomaly, because there are no stories after it that Keldor is mentioned again. So it had no effect story-wise to the lore, not in the American stories or German or UK ones. As mentioned previously, the big focus was on the Three Towers, so those are featured in many stories. but the Keldor story is very localized to this single minicomic. The toy line ended around this time, and the next time Mattel revisited He-Man was with the New Adventures. But the time-traveling Keldor left an impression on the fans, who were curious about what Keldor looked like and how did he become Skeletor in the decades after. Talking about it online as more fans were discovering web pages dedicated to He-Man and She-Ra. There was even fan art how Keldor might look like, with a Caucasian skin as the brother of Randor normally would have. There was no telling how much the magic experiments disfigured Keldor's skin and face. At this point in time, very little was known about this brother. Very likely a younger brother, because when the fans had the opportunity to get in touch with some of the creators in 2000 at He-Man.org website, writer Stephen Grant stated, his backstory wasn't really worked out. Some sort of evil cosmic energies altered him. I think they were going for a Darth Vader thing, but it was a tack-on. He also touched upon why Skeletor didn't want the heroes finding out about Keldor. The main idea was that if they found out Skeletor was Keldor, they'd be able to find out what had changed him and might find some way to reverse it. As far as how Keldor became Skeletor, Grant said, "The Nameless One had something to do with Keldor becoming Skeletor. I think he was their version of Emperor Palpatine, the great evil behind everything else." As with everything else, there was no more backstory. The Nameless One here refers to the Unnamed One, which King Hiss and the Snakemen serve, not to be confused with the Faceless One. On August 16th, 2002, the new reboot cartoon of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe by Mattel and Mikeon Productions aired on Cartoon Network. In this new version, the viewers are introduced to a blue-skinned Keldor, who attacks the Hall of Wisdom, where the governing rulers, the Council of Elders, are. The Elders had just then appointed Randor as the King of Eternia, which Keldor is unaware of as he bursts in. He fights against Captain Randor, depicting his skills as a great swordsman, and after the fight scene, he is defeated by Randor. But Keldor has a small vial containing magic-imbued liquid that he throws at Randor, only for it to be deflected back at him. Keldor is thus burned by his own magic, but he manages to escape to the Dark Hemisphere, where the good guys seal him off behind the Mystic Wall. In another flashback, we see that in the Dark Hemisphere, Keldor went to a sanctuary dedicated to Hordak, where he was able to contact the Ancient Warlord. Keldor says he's dying and needs help to continue his conquest of Eternia. Hordak states that there will be a price to pay, to which Keldor agrees. And Hordak uses his magic to save Keldor's life, but by turning him into Skeletor in the process. It is revealed that the price to pay is Hordak requesting Skeletor to break him free from the terrible dimension of Despondos, where Hordak's spirit ended up in his battle against King Grayskull in ancient times. As Hordak mortally wounded King Grayskull, and his spirit is being pulled through the portal into Despondos, Hordak screams that he shall return. And in the original script, his full sentence was, "I shall return, Grayskull. I will find the perfect vessel, and by their hand shall regain power." These nuggets of information you can find in the unofficial 2002 He-Man cartoon guide, which includes other trivia and behind-the-scenes research, as well as synopsis and reviews on all episodes. So that means Hordak had been searching for thousands and thousands of years for someone, until Keldor came along. In the comics by MVCreations, we learned that Hordak sent the young Keldor into the past to retrieve the stave from Lord of Salacia, or Havoc Staff as most fans know it, one of the keys to help attempt Hordak to break free from Despondos. The comics also showcased how Keldor recruited some of his henchmen in the Icons of Evil miniseries, But in the modern times, Skeletor betrayed Hordak and didn't go through with the plan, and instead destroyed Hordak's sanctuary. As Season 2 focused more and more on the new Snakeman threat, Skeletor actively wasn't seen in the final episodes. In the animated series, the creators never had a proper chance to confirm on screen that Keldor is the half-brother of Randor. One hint occurs in the episode The Last Stand, where Prince Adam tries to stop Skeletor from entering Grayskull, and he manages to grab his staff. To which Skeletor replies with, "It's not nice to take what rightfully belongs to others." But then again, like father, like son. The reveal came in a 2005 Q&A over at the He-Man.org forums with producer Ian Richter, confirming that Randor and Skeletor are brothers. This was always the plan, they have different mothers but the same father. I was disappointed we never got to finally do this, which gives Randor and Keldor a history to explore. Their father is Captain Miro, who never was a king in the reboot series, so there was no rightful heir or bloodline.
Eternia really never had a king. It was ruled by the elders, who were like, who were these sages, these wise people, and only when they had to coalesce and become this crystal, and Eternia lost those people to give them the wisdom, then they decided to choose a king, and they chose Randor. That's how Randor became king. He was merely a captain in the guard, in the royal guard, or in the guard at the time.
The Council of Elders were the rulers, which is why in Randor's case he was more than surprised to all of a sudden be given that title and responsibility. And in Keldor's case, his plans for conquest are that of a power-hungry madman. The writers and producer of the 2002 series revealed in a panel at PowerCon how they had seen the interview with the minicomic writer.
Having the message boards, even before we started development, was really, really interesting, and it was kind of a new thing. And the idea to make Skeletor Keldor was directly from the boards. So when I discovered that that was something that was He-Man lore, I thought, what if we actually made that come true? And so the message boards and the fan community had a huge influence on this show.
The design of Keldor went through many stages, and in some he's depicted with a receding hairline, or he's depicted as older evil bastard until they evolved into the more handsome look for the character. So there you have it. Thank you once again to Mega J for inviting me to take part in this. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can check out my channel, Toon Jukka, for more behind the scenes videos, origins and histories about He-Man and She-Ra.